Welcome back, everyone, to What's Your Story, episode 10. Man, it is wonderful to be here with you tonight on this Sunday evening. I am Leilani Langdon, your host, and this is a space where we get to journey along the stories of others so that you, the listener, can be inspired to know, own, and share your story. And so if this is your first time tuning in, go ahead and connect with us in the chat. It's part of the community here. We connect, we talk, we empower one another, we support, we affirm the individual who's sharing their story. And so let me know where you're watching from. Let me know what's going on. If you are part of our community, you're tuning in tonight, just go ahead and say hi. But hey, hey, Jack. But yeah, so I don't know about you, but I had a great weekend. We ended up going to Indiana to visit some friends of ours, and my husband leads worship, and so we got a chance to do that. And so it's always nice when we get together and just be with friends that really have become family. Hey, Marcy, how you doing, Mama? If you're just jumping in, go ahead and let me know you're here in the chat. But yeah, so we drove the same day and came back, and we were so tired. I barely made it. I usually drive on the trip, so I don't know who in the chat is a driver or a passenger, but I like to drive. I like to be in control of the vehicle. I don't know why. I just do. And so, however, it's funny because Adrian, my husband, is always really nervous and he never falls asleep while we're driving because he's terrified that something's going to happen. He says that I'm a distracted driver. I don't think I'm a distracted driver. I just think that I am hyper aware. Let's just say that, okay? But we had a great weekend, and I'm just looking forward to these next 2 weeks. Christmas is right around the corner, and I can't believe how fast December is going. Like it just started, and I feel like by next week it's over. Like our kids' Christmas program is this next weekend, and then by that point it's just Christmas, right? Like I got to make sure I got to get all the presents done. I mean, I don't know about you, but I am not nearly even close to being done with my Christmas shopping. So that's a good question to ask you guys. Have you done your Christmas shopping yet? Have you done your Christmas shopping? I have not, and I have not even started. But let me know in the chat. I'm so excited for tonight. I get to be on with one of my dear girlfriends. I'm so excited to have her share. We have so much history together. I was actually secretly eating some gelato while I was doing my makeup because if you know me, you know I love ice cream. And then I was laughing in my head because Chantal and I like to eat. Okay, it's just a thing. So I'm just gonna put that out there. And we also like treats. We love sweet treats. And I just Chantal, you're listening. You know where this is going. But we were in the cafeteria at our university one day, and we just found like the biggest chocolate chip cookie. And it wasn't that big, but for some reason we just thought it was the funniest thing. And we would not, like, when I tell you, like, you know how like belly like jiggling, like I'm crying of how much we're laughing at how big this cookie was. And it really wasn't that big, and it was a really good cookie. But it was just so funny to us. So anyway, that came to mind as I was eating my gelato and doing my makeup at the same time as I was getting ready for the show. Marcy says she's a last minute shopper, better sales. Really? No way. No. Really? There's I don't know. I've never tried. I'm usually, no, I don't think I've ever seen that. Marcy, maybe I need to do that. I need to wait till last minute. But I was on a call. You can continue to. Marcy says, yeah, okay, I'm gonna have to look into that. But right before I bring on Chantal, I was having a conversation this week, and I wanted to share with you guys because part of owning your story, part of living the life that God has called you to live, requires you to navigate your fear. It requires you to manage your fear. The fear is never going to go away. Fear is an emotion that serves us for some things, but doesn't always serve us for others, right? And so However, when we want to pursue something, when we want to chase after something, we have to manage our fear. And as I was having a conversation earlier this week, I was on a call and I was talking to this individual, and one of the things that came up was that they were feeling stuck. And the reason why they were feeling stuck is because they kept asking themselves the question, what if, right? Whenever they thought about this thing that they wanted to pursue. And it's interesting because as a therapist, what if is one of the phrases that I deal with the most, because it's a hanging thought. So when it comes to anxiety or fear, one of the things that perpetuates and keeps us in the cycle of fear are these what if thoughts, right? And I'm sure that if you have been in any scenario that you've been worried about or scared about, you can fill in the blank with what if, right? Like, I'm scared of blah, blah, blah. Well, what if I fail? I'm scared to do this because what if I fail? What if people don't like it? What if they judge me? What if they laugh? What if I become homeless? What if I lose my job? What if there's a catastrophe and I don't have enough water, right? Or food. And so, these what if thoughts are actually called hanging thoughts. And the reason why they're called that way is because we don't finish the sentence. We don't finish the thought. We go, what if I fail? And then we sit in the emotion that that failure brings about, right? Feelings of despair and self-pity and feeling bad for ourselves. And so one of the ways, right, that you can get unstuck. And so I think it's important to talk about this when you're trying to move past fear so that you can actually chase and pursue what God is calling you to do, and to own your own story, to sit with your own story, is to really, really face those thoughts. So one of the things that I want to leave you with tonight is whenever you have a what if thought, for whatever reason, whatever worry or fear comes up, ask yourself the question, what if? But then follow it up with, then what? What if I lose my job? Okay, then what? Well, I will probably get a severance package, but I'll have to look for another one. And okay, and then what? Well, and then I will struggle for maybe struggle for a couple of months if there's no income coming in. And then, okay, then what? And you follow that thought all the way through until you get to a place where sometimes you realize, hey, this is actually not realistic. Like what I was afraid of is actually not true. And so you recognize that thought is not serving you. And so it's a first step in being able to move past that fear and recognizing that there's hope to any situation. And here's the other question with this call. As I was processing this with this individual, here was the question that came up. But so we always go to the negative. Well, what if this doesn't work out? What if I fail? What if I become homeless? What if I lose? What if I get hurt? What if? But then we never do that with the positive. Well, what if you succeed? Right? Like what if you knock that presentation out of the park? What if you do so well that it opens the door to other opportunities? What if you win? What if you succeed? What if you're okay? What if there's peace, right? And so I just want to leave that with you today. If you're feeling stuck, if you're needing to move past the fear and some anxiety that comes with pursuing and owning your story, today I challenge you to finish the thought, what if, then what? And recognize that that you have the ability to move past that. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on my girlfriend Chantal into the mix. Everybody, you know the deal. Get your hand clap emojis ready to welcome her tonight. Chantal.
Hey.
Hey, girl. So good to have you on. Did you
Thanks
like my
for having me?
Did you like my cookie story? Do you remember the cookie?
Girl, when you came here the other day, well, we went for cookies, like, because that's our thing, cookies.
Yes. I know. I was just so funny because I actually don't remember what made it so funny, but we were just so we laughed so hard for so long over the size of that.
17 years about it, like it's still so funny.
Yes. Anyway, but Chantal, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a Canadian that actually lived in the US for 14 years with my husband, and 6 years ago we came back to Canada and we had my daughter. I have two boys that are 13, 11, he's almost 12, and I have almost a 6-year-old. She's our New Year's Eve baby, our party baby that came right before midnight.
Mercy, Lord.
So yeah, and I'm a lead pastor, founding pastor of Thursday Church in Toronto. So that's
Exciting. Yes. In a nutshell, exciting stuff. I love it. So Chantal, tell us, what's your story?
Oh man, like when you asked me that question, I was like, okay, 37 years of so much, because God has done so much in my life. And I just had to figure out what part of my story I wanted to share. And I thought about my yeses in my early 20s, being young, married with children, and what did that look like? And I would think about, first of all, I never really wanted children. So let's start there. I was really career oriented for like many, many years. I thought, you know what, when I get my degree, I'm just gonna have that dream job and I'm gonna just work it and make a lot of money. What I thought, I just thought was going on, and everything went opposite what I thought was gonna happen. I mean, right after I graduated, I worked for a little bit, but then because I was a Canadian in the US, I lost my visa and I got married to my husband who's an American, but I couldn't work for like a year. And that was really hard on me because I'm thinking, man, I'm about to make this money. And all of a sudden, I just became a stay-at-home wife. Like my house is always clean. Like there was nothing to do. My husband and I moved to a new city, so I knew nobody. So literally, I have no friends. I had no community. My husband's leaving me every day to go to work, and I'm just home by myself. And I'm like, Lord, like I got this degree. I spent all this money. I thought I had purpose. And finally, I did my immigration paperwork, and I get the paperwork, and I'm like, okay, I can work finally.
Yes.
Ready to get his job. And then I literally get my immigration paperwork to work in the US. I found I'm pregnant with my first son. And to be honest, like I was not a happy camper. Like I feel guilty for saying that right now because I was like, I want to make some money. Like I want to hustle. Like I had this dream to be like this big marketer and do all this stuff, but God had other plans. And so I even remember interviewing for jobs and like almost vomiting after each interview because I was so sick. I was trying to still hustle to get that job. And God was like, why don't you relax? And I was like, no, but I need money. And that's kind of like my journey with the Lord, like the hustle. I'm a hustler, like to get things done. And so I literally pregnant with my first child, and I remember being about 6 months pregnant, and I'm still not happy. Like I'm like, yo, I want to work. Like I'm just home, and we got a call from some good friends that they lost their child, and that was a whole wake-up moment. I remember sitting on my porch thinking, what's your problem, Chantal? Like you have the gift of life in you, and you're worrying about money. You're worrying about your future, even though you spent 4 years getting this degree. You know, there's other people that are trying to have kids or have situations, and you've been blessed with this child. And that was a game changer for me at that moment. Of saying, okay, look, there's a reason why you blessed me at this time with my child. And so going a little bit further, 9 months pregnant, I'm like, we're about to have this baby. And my husband's like, we're doing ministry at the time. We started a ministry. And my husband goes, yeah, so I want to quit my job. I'm like, quit your job? Do you not know I'm 9 months pregnant? He was like, yeah. But
no, sir.
Telling me to quit my job. And I was like, how would you get fired? Get fired, like get unemployment, like do something at work. He was like, no, I want to be a person of integrity. I can't quit my job. And I feel the Lord is saying to put in my 2 weeks notice. That was hard. I was like, but we're about to have a baby. Like, what are we gonna do? Like I love the Lord, love the church, love the local church, but like we have a family that we're starting.
Right.
And I remember like I don't want to even call home to tell my parents that my husband wants to quit his job to do full-time ministry. And you know, I remember putting in his 2 weeks notice and like, Lord, what's gonna happen? What's gonna be next? And what's so crazy about that? For 17 months, I never paid for one diaper. Like literally, every time I would run out of diapers, like people were like, "Oh, I have extra diapers. Can I drop them off?" Like for 17 months.
Wow.
And there showed me like, God, you are with us. Like your favor with us doing ministry. And it was beautiful that I was able to do ministry with my husband while we were having our first child. And so that was the starting point to say, okay, God, you are with us. And with that, like after, you know, my son Gabriel was about 6 months old, My husband was in some meeting and someone said, hey, we're looking for someone for this position. Do you know anyone? He's like, actually, I know the perfect person. And it was me. It was a job working for employment for people that have persistent and mental health challenges. I have a background in marketing and employment. So he thought that'd be a great position. And so I interviewed, I got the job. I'm like, hey, okay.
Finally.
Finally. You know, I have a 6-month-old child and I'm in this job, and 90 days in, I come home after work, my boss calls me, and my boss never calls me at home. And I'm like, what's up? And she's like, just want to let you know we've lost funding for your position. I'm like, what? But she's like, you know, we still want to keep you on. We want in the next 90 days to figure out how we can still keep you in the job. And I'm like, okay. So I'm in this limbo in between positions, and I'm like, okay, Lord, I might be potentially losing my job. And you know how much, like, you know, I want security resources there. Well, in between the 90 days, I get pregnant with my second son.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm like, okay, so I gotta tell my boss that I'm pregnant, and I not only have like a 9-month-old at home, I'm now also pregnant with my second child. My kids are 18 months apart. And so I remember interviewing for another position since they were holding to figure out. And I interview for the position, and I tell the lady after the interview, like, hey, just wanted to let you know that I'm pregnant. And she goes, so are you disabled or something? And I was like, no. She's like, what's the problem? And I was like, wow. And from then she was like, I don't see a problem with it. If you're just gonna take maternity leave and then come back, right? I'm like, yeah. And it's so funny how I thought, even though it's a miracle having a baby, that it was going to be a hindrance. And God's like, no, I want to make a plan for you. I've opened this door for you.
Yes.
And how many times I think about what we think is a hindrance, it's just an open door for other people.
Yeah.
Like, I want to keep you here. Like, I don't see why this is a problem for keeping for position. So that was another thing, like God, recognizing God is with me. Fast forward to a year later, my second son is 1 year old. My husband takes me out for a date night to the pie company and is like, so we got to talk for a moment. I'm like, what? Because at this time, my husband's not only doing full-time ministry, but he's watching our 2 kids full-time.
Because you're still working.
Because I'm working full-time at the marketplace, and my husband's doing ministry, watching our 2 little boys under 2. He started watching though. I had 1-month-old and a 9-week-old baby that he started watching.
Listen. Big ups to daddy, okay?
Listen. And that's a story in itself that I didn't respect of him being home with the kids, because I didn't understand it, because I wasn't home with kids. I was like, I was the one coming home like, yo, so what's not done? Like,
yes. Yeah.
I didn't understand that. Like, I had no idea what that meant, being home with 2 kids full time plus trying to work at all. So I wasn't really respectful of his time when he was home with the kids. But, you know, he takes me out for pie and says, hey, I've been praying, and the Lord has said, I need you to come off your job. I was like, you're joking, right? He's like, no. I need you to come off your job, because I feel like I need to give more time to ministry. And this was the line that got me. He goes, I don't want to rob you of your blessings of being home with your kids if you have the opportunity to be with your kids. And I was like, that's cute, but I want to make money and I want to be working. Like, that was really my mentality at the time, because I found my security in my job and in my work and my family at some point. Because at that time, my circle of influence, everyone was working and no one had kids. And I'm just like, I'm in a place of, I'm a mom, but I want to be in the workforce. I worked hard for this degree. I want to actually exercise and use it. And so he was like, I'm going to give you 2 weeks to pray for strength and peace. And I was like, wow. He's like, no, because I really feel God is calling our family for you to come home and you to, for me to go full-time ministry. And I was like, how about part-time? Like, nah, I don't think part-time is going to work. Like, I begged, I cried. He was like, you know what? You can go home and pray to the Lord to see what the Lord says. And I was like, I'm not comfortable with this. Like, I cried for like a good week. Like, every day. Like, I felt I was giving up something, even though I understood the blessing in it, I was scared. That's really the issue. I was scared to stay home with kids that I've never stayed home with. I knew that I was well at the marketplace, managing caseloads, managing people, but I was little people. Nah, I can't manage 2 little people. Like, I was very intimidated, and I was intimidated by my husband because he was home with them for 2.5 years. He knew it well, like very.
Yes.
I came to part with his even parenting, being home with them and balancing ministry at the same time. And so I remember the day it was time to put my 2 weeks notice in, and I was like scared, but I wanted to look at my email, my husband's old resignation level, to kind of like resignation email, to like kind of like look at the same letter.
Right,
And
model
I
it.
was looking in my email, I could not believe it. It was the exact same date when he resigned when I was 9 months pregnant, 3 years to the date. And I was
Wow.
like, okay, God, and God reminded me of that moment. If I was faithful for providing 17 months of diapers, why don't you think I'll be with you in this next season? I was like, okay, God. Okay, so I put my 2 weeks notice in, and I was like, okay. And you know what? The first day coming home, my job was to potty train my 1.5-year-old, and I was scared. Like, I was absolutely scared of doing it because I just don't do that. And it was adjustment, like not getting up in the morning, putting on my makeup, going to the job, and kind of feeling versus, and you were in that transition not too long ago, and it's hard, and it affects your psyche, and like your purpose and your identity was wrapped in this thing. And I feel like God was stripping me from my work being my identity versus my family and the other. I had calls and purposes that God had for me at home and even in ministry, doing at church, but there was something. And I also, for me, was connect to getting validated through pay versus volunteering at institution, or even it doesn't come with a pay. It comes with a different reward, but not a financial gain that I wanted that security. Like, for me, as awesome talking about money, like security, money is a big thing for me. And, and that was a journey in itself. But one thing I did do when my kids were 1 and 3, I started my master's while they were small. So what I did is I quit my job, was home with my kids, but while they were home with me, during their nap times, through at their bedtimes, I was doing my master's I did that for 2 years. And by the time I graduated, they were 3 and 5 at the time. And I was like, okay, 3 and 5. I did my internship, had my master's, about to get the dream job.
Yes.
Like, come on.
Finally.
I'm ready for this. And my husband goes, yeah, so God's calling us to California. I'm like, what? Like,
sir.
What? Like, I just got like my education. I'm ready to go the next level. I'm ready to like have identity. I'm educated again. And it's like literally we moved 2 weeks after my graduation of my master's.
Wow.
I didn't even have a moment. Like, and I had a job lined up at like in the hospital, a good level job. And it was like, no, God is calling us outwards. And I just want to step back a little bit. When I quit my job to be home with my kids and my husband was able to focus on full-time ministry, our church tripled in size within a month.
Wow.
And I just, again, God showed our faithfulness of being obedient, that, even though I went kicking and screaming, that even though I was uncomfortable of quitting my job, there was a blessing on the other side of my yes, which didn't come easy. It was a struggle to do it. And each time I've struggled to that yes, God has superseded what I thought I was going to have. I've recognized I don't have to be scared because God's taking care of me each and every single time. And so so after finishing my master's, we moved to California to do ministry. And that was a journey in itself. And you know what? Again, my husband had a good position, and I was home at the time. My second son now is 4 years old, and I'm home with him full time. And I'm like, I'm going to look for a full-time job while he's going to be in preschool. For 6 months, every day I hustled to look for a job. And I finally landed a job 6 months later. And you know what? When I thought about it, I did not just enjoy the sun. I didn't enjoy that season because I was hustling every day, putting in a resume. And God just said, again, if you just rested in me, trusted me, I would have provided. But you were just so much on your grind, the hustle. And I'm like, that when I got my job, I was like, man, I had full reign to enjoy the beach. I had full reign to just lounge, and I didn't take
palm trees.
Listen, I didn't take any advantage of that.
Yeah.
I was so worried about, again, moving into purpose in the workplace to try to make some money and provide for family, versus I had an opportunity to be home and really enjoy what was going on in our new community. And so again, God's like, you need to trust me, like, And so, we were in California for 2 years, and I remember my husband, again, he goes to India for a trip. And I knew this trip, when he goes to India, that was going to be very significant. And so God started, while he's in India, preparing my heart. I'm like, Lord, I don't know when he comes home what he's about to say. Because every time the man has big faith. And I don't know what's going to happen when he comes back. But I knew it was preparing my heart, because I knew potentially something big. And at that time, California was an amazing experience. At the same time, it was a wilderness experience. It was the worst season of our lives.
Wow.
And my husband and I's life. And he always says, it was, you can be in a place that's paradise, beautiful, but if it's not where it's supposed to be, it can be. And that's exactly how it was. But it was a new season for us, for God to pull things out, for us to come undone. Because prior to that, we were a part full-time ministry leading. And when you're leading something, you can't always come undone. And so I felt like God in that season brought us away to really come undone, to work out some things that we need to work out, deal with some inner things, external things, just in our relationship, personally, individually at that time.
Yeah.
And so when he got back from India, he's like, yeah, I think God is saying it's time to move. And I'm like, to move? And I remember him driving me to work that day. And I called my girlfriend and said, crying, like, I cannot be married to a man of faith anymore. Like, this is he's always up to something. I cannot do it. And she reminded me of when my husband and I, at 23 years old, we prayed, and God told us that one day, in 7 years, we would move back to Toronto to plant a church. And literally 7 years to the month. And she said, have you thought about moving back to Canada? I was like, no. She's like, do you remember that God told you about going back home? And I always tell people, when you're in that desperate place, you have to remember who you need to call. The right person that will give you vision and tell you where to go. And so I was like, I didn't even think about that. And so at my lunch break, I call my husband. I'm like, hey, babe, what do you think about moving to Canada? And back to Toronto, he's like, I hate snow and I hate mosquitoes. Those are two things he hates. He hates those two things. And he's like, you know what? I never thought about it. Let's fast and pray. So we fast and pray for like a couple of days. And God just says, yes, like, I think it's time for you to come back home. And while we're in that time, we said, let's put down a prayer list. And we put a prayer list together of 10 different items. And at that time, my husband was wanting another child at that time. And he actually begged me for many years for another child. Again, I was scared because it was going to interrupt my plans. And the gap between my middle child, my third, because I was too scared. I wanted a different life. And that's a story in itself, but I remember when I finally got the courage to pray, and God said, you're living a life of sin and disobedience because you're not asking for me. Who do you think you are, the giver or the taker of life? That was a whole thing that I had to work with God, like saying, praying, God, do you want us to have another child? And so when we prayed that week, do you want to have another child? A week later, I found out I was pregnant with our child, our daughter.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like, okay, God, so it's a yes. Like, you want us to have another baby,
clearly, because it had already happened. Okay.
I was already pregnant, which is funny, praying to have another child, but I was already pregnant. And that was what's crazy about it. And so the other thing we were asking God, like, where are we going to live? Like, we literally don't have anything to move from. Even though my husband and I are from Canada, we've been gone for 14 years. We have nothing. And when we called my in-laws, they're like, oh, we have a basement apartment. Our tenant just moved out. You guys have a place to stay. So we're like, boom. So we had a place to stay.
Wow.
Then we sold all of our furniture. Mind you, everything in my place was brand new. Like,
oh my gosh,
brand new couches, brand new TVs, brand new kitchen, like everything. Like, when God was like, I was like, but I just bought everything. Like
Oh
everything
my God.
brand new. And literally we sold off everything. We shipped 10 boxes to Toronto. Half the boxes became broken. When we got back, we drove 43 hours. I'm 3 months pregnant and a 2-door Honda Accord, to follow
My
purpose.
goodness.
And that was a defining moment for me. I said, when I
Wow.
back to Toronto, I'm going to try something different. And I remember praying to God. I said, God, I don't want the hustle anymore. I don't want to go after paper. I want to run after purpose. And since that day, that has been my season. I'm running after purpose and not paper, because that wasn't working for me. My identity was trying to get wrapped up in working and just running after money, and not money in a bad thing. Like, I'm not even a money person that I want lots of money. I just want security for my family.
Yes. Stability, security. Yes.
That's really what a resource is.
Yes.
I want more to help other people, to bless other people, and not even much for myself. And so
Yeah.
in this season, I've seen God again been faithful. And listen, we came back to Toronto. I had my daughter's New Year's Eve, and a week after I had my daughter, we decided to go public that we were starting a church. And when we went public, this year or January, we will be 5 years old, and the church is growing like crazy. And
amazing.
Even that, before I came back, when I came back to Canada, I was like, I don't know if I really want to start the church right away, because I know how hard it is. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
Dealing with people, dealing with just building in general. And I was very scared again. And my husband's like, you know what? I'm not going to pressure you, but when you're ready, I'm already ready to plant this church, but I'll wait for you until we're on the same page. And he waited for actually months.
Wow.
For me to come on the same.
Yeah.
And I had to deal with God. I'm like, God, like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm scared. I kept telling God, who's going to show up? Really, we're two people. We haven't lived in Canada 14 years. We don't have a community here. Who's going to really show up to a church that we are starting?
Right.
And your yes that you haven't said yes is hindering what's on the other for other people. And I want you to say yes, because there's lives that want to be changed. And I was like,
yes.
God, like, I'm scared. And he says, say yes and see what happens. And I kid you not, it was our 9-year wedding anniversary. And I told my husband, like, I'm ready. Like, I think I want to take the jump to start the church. I kid you not, that night we are out for dinner and someone calls him. So are you starting a church? I was like, don't. I'm like, what? He's like, they're asking him, like, are you going to start? I'm like, okay. I say, hang up the phone. I don't believe them. I was so skeptical. I was so scared. I was like, I literally just told you today that I'm ready. And then you get a phone.
All of a sudden,
all of a sudden. So I was like, hey, God, like, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to try something different. This is the first time I was like, I'm going to trust you. I don't know what's happening. I'm going to walk blindly by faith. And I have to say, literally 4.5 years later, we literally have hundreds, and now we have thousands that watch us every week at our church for the power of my yes. And I tell people, there's power behind your yes. There's people waiting behind your yes. Even though you're scared, even though I was kicking screaming, but there's something about my obedience and your sacrifice that God honors. And I've seen it over and over and over again. And that's my story. As like, even though I know that God has me, even though I know that there's something beyond that, I had to get over my fear. And just like, every year I have like a mantra. And that year, my mantra for myself is, girl, get over yourself. Like, that was it. Because it was me blocking myself from what I wanted, because I was so wrapped up in fear. I was wrapped up again, who's going to show up? And every week when I get up on that platform, I am blown away that people show up every week to hear the gospel be preached. Like, it blows my mind, because I really didn't think anyone's going to show up. And I'm just like, God, you are faithful. You are faithful to your word. You're faithful to your promises. And it just continues. It encourages me every time when I want to do a new project to my yes. What's beyond my yes? What if I say no? What if I stay in the place of scarcity?
Yes.
What if I continue to be scared and afraid? What if I keep closing my mouth? What if I listen to the insecurities? What if that? But what if I do?
Yes, yes,
absolutely. I go back to God's resume over actually more than 4 years, but God's been faithful. He has not let me down. Even if I felt like it doesn't go the way that I want to, there's always a lesson in it. There's
Yes.
always a lesson I'm learning from it, a lesson I'm growing in my spirituality as a woman,
Mm.
as a mother, as a pastor, that no lesson is wasted
Yes.
ever.
Yes. That's
And
good.
so I don't know, it's been an amazing journey to see what God has done with my yes. And I know that's not my
Mm.
story, but just kind of my story of through my
Yes.
children, through my ministry, learning that
Yes.
I say no because I'm like frightened, I'm scared. God has just
Yes.
been so faithful.
Man, thank you, Chantal, for sharing that. That's so powerful. One of the things that comes to mind is, you talked about how after every after every move of obedience, whether it was reluctant or not, right? After every move of obedience, you were able to kind of look back and say, like, man, God was with me. He's with me, right? And so, I guess my question for you is, what has your story inspired you to do now? But then also, really, a second part to that is, how have you used that story to continue to propel you towards purpose, right? Like, how do you do that practically? Like, how have you been able to do that practically?
Practically, like okay, obviously my husband's an amazing preacher, he's an amazing musician, like he's a guy, the guy's a prodigy, like seriously. And
Mm-hmm.
at one point that was a struggle for me because I thought my husband was so good. I had the comparison issue with my own spouse. And
That's
through
real.
God's faithfulness over the years, I'm like, He's shown me that I can do this. I have purpose. And even
Yes.
this last 18 months doing online ministry, it's not
Mm-hmm.
easy speaking behind a mic with nobody in the room. Like,
Girl, yes.
extremely hard. And through the last 18 months, God has definitely built my confidence in speaking behind the mic, at church, at the red
Mm.
dot. And
Yes.
I continue to look back at, like, man, you did this before. Why can't you do this? And even like,
Mm.
I launched my show earlier on this year.
Yes.
So scared to do it.
Yes.
I was scared because it's something new. I'm not personally, I don't feel like I'm a natural communicator. I have a lot more work to put in, but I was still like, I'm going to do it anyways. Like, I'm just taking
Yes.
and just do it regardless of what happens. I want to try
Mhm.
it. And that's helped me in this year as I prepare to
Mm.
do another season. Again, scared to do it, but I think that's helped me, I think, in this last season, because online ministry was no joke the last 18 months. Like,
Yeah, I
we've
can
recently got
imagine.
back to do in person, but it was a whole new world with no audience feeding you,
Right.
I'm
Giving you
praying.
affirmation and
Yeah, like,
yes.
when you speak, you feel the energy off the room. There was like dead, nobody there. Like, it's just, that's it. The camera and
Yes.
you. And
Yes.
it can be
I know.
intimidating. You're doing so many takes over and over again. You're like, hey, this is not sounding great. But then you just realize, like, just to relax and, like, you know what? I
Yeah.
can only do what I can do.
Yeah, yeah,
Only
yeah.
can be me. And that's
Absolutely.
it, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. What would you say to somebody and if you guys have any questions, hashtag question, but one of the things I want to know is how do you continually manage your fear, right? Because that's a huge part of learning the lessons, right? And moving forward even when there's some apprehension. So, like, how do you actively manage your fear?
I definitely have to evaluate it. Like, is it a lie or a
Mm,
truth? Because I think sometimes if you
good.
focus on your emotion, it will
Yes.
it will it will distract you so many times if I go by like how I feel like I sounded or whatever this insecurity that might be arising.
Yes.
And I think about, what is truth? Is it really that, or is it just me? And I keep
Mm,
evaluating that and trying to be a non-biased person to the situation versus like how I really feel, because feelings will just definitely lead you astray. The other thing is
yes.
having, again, calling the right people. How many times we do voice notes? I'm like, Leilani, like, this what's going on. I'm in the
Yeah,
car
girl.
crying,
Yes,
like,
yes.
back and
Yeah, yeah,
forth,
yeah.
making sure having the
I
right
love that
circle
community.
to that
Mhm.
you can. It's so important to have a brave space, especially in my world. I'm in ministry. There's very few people I can talk to, and to keep it
Yeah,
100, because
yeah.
it's just that's how it works. It's a very small
Yeah.
circle that I can actually keep a community. And so I have to make sure that I have the right community that I can be honest with and
Mm,
real, that are gonna not just gonna be like pump me up, but they're gonna be like, that kind of sounds kind of crazy, or like that's just kind of you. It's not really what's happening, and just bring me back to the center, like
Yes.
And then I realized if I'm not in my word faithfully, if I'm not in worship, man, the lives of the enemy will just double up. The sound will get louder and louder because I don't have some word to put on it. I don't have no worship to put on it. And I tell people all the time, like, if we're on the battlefield, what's in your arsenal? What is in your
good?
If you don't have a scripture to pull out, you're gonna get defeated every time. Your default is gonna be like negativity. But when you're in my word, I'm in worship. I pull out the scripture of Psalms 3:5, trust in the Lord with all my heart, lean not to my understanding. Like I can pull it out. But if you don't have a scripture on deck, you can be in trouble. If you don't have, if you're all in your top 10 plays, Beyonce or whoever the next thing is, what is that feeding you? Positivity, great. I can bump, but you need some like prophetic word to speak into your situation. When you're going through something at that time. And so I think it's so important to have to pull that out. And I have those pull up scriptures. I have those songs that at those times when I'm feeling low or I'm feeling like I don't know how to get through the situation, I need truth pumped in me through friends, through the word, and through worship.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Love that. Love that. Something that I love that you said that Crystal highlighted was chase purpose, not paper. Chase purpose, not paper. I really appreciate that because I think it's so true. We get caught up in believing that security lies in the external things. And listen, if this pandemic has taught us one thing, is that we truly have no security, right? Or that illusion of security was dismantled. And the reality is that at the end of the day, there's not enough money in this world. There's not enough of a perfect job that is going to fill you, right? That is going to give you a sense of continued purpose, right? Because you can lose a job, like you said, right? Like God can be like, hey, stay home. And you're like, wait a second, wait, what do I do with myself? And so I think, I love that you're constantly reflecting and you're not wasting those lessons, as you said, right? You're allowing those lessons to teach you what you need to learn for the next season that that God is preparing you for. And so I'm so excited just to see what God continues to do in your life. So tell me, but you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but I want you to tell us about your show and then where people can connect with you.
Yeah, so my show is Let's Go There. And it's real raw conversations about life. Like I love authenticity. I don't like the fake fluff stuff. And so my show is just hearing people's story, but let's go there and talk about some real issues. I am launching back season 2 in January. I have some that will be on there and just some hot topics. And you can follow me at Surf City. I did church today. So I'm in church
but that is your church, Surf City.
Yeah, Surf City GTA at Instagram. But on my personal is Chantal Beresford, and my website is Chantal Beresford, and my YouTube channel is Chantal Beresford. That's where you can find me most days about my ministry and just our church. That's all I really post with my church and my family. So
love it. We will definitely put that in the comments. We did have a question pop up, so I am going to ask it for you. Ask it to you and answer quickly. From Cynthia, how do you balance ministry within your family unit and ministry for outside your family unit?
Yes, love
this. This is a good question.
Love it. My husband and I are very intentional of we have sacred time. Like since the kids were babies till now, like for us, we carve out a one day of the week that is just a family. It's coined family day and it's sacred. We're not allowed taking appointments. We don't take most likely speaking engagements unless it's agreed upon. It's my husband makes pancakes every week for our kids.
Love it.
Since they were 2 years old, and now I have a 13-year-old. We've literally done this every single week, and we've been consistent wherever state or country we lived at. And so it's a consistent thing that we have. We have family worship with our kids every week because even though we're a ministry family, we pour out so much, and it's so important for our kids that we answer their theological questions because they are deep, even though they're 12 and 13. Oh my word, we're answering theological questions. We're just building up their faith and their prayer life at this age, and we make sure we put boundaries. Our family is number one. Like our church is secondary. It's not even like even though we're running a ministry, it is secondary. We will shut down our church if things are not in order in our home. And my husband always says we only can preach heaven at church is because heaven's at home. And a lot of people are having hell at home and faking the friend and heaven at church. And that's just not how it works for us. Our family is number one. And so we are very intentional, even the speaking engagements that we take externally, because we speak a lot. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in Victoria Island in Vancouver, BC, speaking. And we had to line that up with our schedules and our family. Does that work for our family? Does that work for our church? Even though we have a global ministry, our kids, again, is so important. And we continue. Some seasons we say we have to say no and be okay with it.
Yeah.
And some seasons we got to know we got to go further. And so that's kind of how we balance it. We make sure we communicate and we have a sacred day for our kids. Like,
yes, I love that.
That we've poured into.
Yeah.
13 years. So,
and boundaries.
Listen, we don't even pick up our phone. Like, if work is calling, we don't even do it. Like, it better be blood, it better be fire. Like, those are the two things.
Emergency,
we really don't like, and our team knows, don't even bother calling because we will not pick up. Like,
yeah, that's good. Thank you, Cynthia, for that question. But Chantal, thank you so much again. You can find her at Chantal Beresford on all platforms: YouTube, website, Instagram, Facebook, and just continue on following her journey. And Chantal, I'm gonna send you backstage, and I will see you in a little bit.
All right.
Bye, girl. My goodness. You know what? I just want to encourage you, if you weren't already inspired, to say yes, right? Say yes to God, to push past the fear, to instead of focusing on the negative what if, being able to lean into like, what if you win? What if you succeed? What if at the other end of that yes, even if you're nervous, even if you're not sure, even if you are kicking and screaming. I remember real quick, when God asked me to go to the Marshall Islands as a missionary, I remember for the first 2 months, I struggled. I would wake up and go to class to have worship with these kids and teach them. And I would have to leave class because I would be crying because I was so upset that he had asked me to go. But I knew it's where I was supposed to be. And I remember I was in the ocean. And I've never shared this story, but I was in the ocean with another friend that was there already, had been there for 6 months already. And I started to drown. I was drowning in the water. And all I remember was like, you feel like your life is flashing before your eyes. I just see this bright light and a hand grab me and pull me out. And she pulls me out and she says to me, this was God. She said to me, Leilani, you are allowing the enemy to win over your life because you will not accept where God wants you. And in that moment, I don't know what happened. The drowning experience, plus her saying that, it was like this weight lifted up off my shoulders that allowed me to then embrace this direction and call in my life. And I just want to remind you, like Chantal has said, and you heard it in her story, right? Even when we're struggling, follow the yes, follow the call, because what God has waiting for you is greater than anything that you can produce with what you need, with your insecurities, because he already is there. He's there where he's calling you to. And so I want to encourage you for that. Tonight, I want to let you know that next week we'll be joining. I have a friend joining me. Her name is Nydia, and she's going to be sharing her amazing story of transformation and conversion. She was an atheist and found God, and it is just an amazing story. So I can't wait for you to listen. If you want to support What's Your Story live, you can do that by subscribing to the YouTube channel. You can share on social media. That is free. You can also donate if you're wanting to What's Your Story live on Cash App. But anyway, guys, as I always say to end the show, purpose is found in knowing, owning, and sharing your story. So the question is, are you ready to share yours? See you next week.